The word nostalgia, very specifically, it comes from the Latin language, and
Mm-hmm.
it means missing home.
So you're
So
hurt. So you
you're
miss your
you
home.
the part of missing, it
Uh-huh.
means that you are somewhat hurt because your desire
Empty.
is to go back. Yeah, you have this feeling of missing something. You want to go back home. That's what it means.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Band Trading Cards. We have a special guest for today. He is an artist of several TCG and digital games. He's also a psychologist. His name is Kundu Del Castillo. In this video, we will discuss the psychology of collecting trading cards. Hi, Kundu. How are you, my friend?
And hello, Ben. Thank you very much for having me here. And I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, it's
What
nice to
about
see you.
you?
It's nice to see you again. I'm good. Yeah, so yeah, just collecting more TCGs
Well,
and
I hope
talking
that you
to
are excited for
yeah,
today's talk because perhaps you will discover some things about yourself.
yes,
So let's
because
see.
probably I have an issue buying things, something
It
like
could
that,
be.
and I have to do more income. So all
It
right,
could
so
be.
yeah, and most of my viewers know about you as an artist in
Hmm.
several TCGs. And they saw your artworks in one of my or our interviews as well at the YouTube.
Hmm.
Then, for our new listeners or viewers, please tell us more about your professional background.
Okay. Well, you mean like in the art department or in the psychological
In
department?
the
Because I
in
have
the yeah, they know
both.
already that you're the artist and they saw your
Okay. Okay.
artwork,
Okay.
so we can go to the
All right.
psychology side. Yeah.
Well, in the psychology part of my development, I was a psychologist. I mean, I work as a psychologist for about 7 or 8 years. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
most of the people think that I studied psychology and I didn't use it and I just dedicated to art, but it actually not that way. I did both at the same time. So
Mm-hmm.
all the time that I was a graphic designer and an artist, I was also a psychologist. So I worked in a psychiatric institute,
Mm-hmm.
in a couple of them actually. And then I gave individual therapy. And then I jumped to work related therapy, like in enterprises and HR and that kind of departments. So I've been through pretty much like the whole um, the whole myriad of places when you can apply psychology. And actually the art department is also a psychology related because you have to use that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that I can say that I have 7 to 8 years of psychology experience, and I have pretty much the same as an artist. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's my background.
So you know you're a natural born artist, but why you studied psychology?
Well, I will say that it was backwards. I feel like I am a natural born psychologist, and I
Oh.
became an artist because I became an artist like really way later in my life. I was like 25, I think,
Mm-hmm.
when I started like taking seriously. But psychology, I think I had like 11 or 12 years when I decided to be a psychologist, because mostly because I wanted to help people. And I think that you have to have a certain ability just to
Mm-hmm.
watch people and read them.
Oh,
I
okay.
think that's the most important part. So when you're a kid, I was very puzzled because when someone speak to me, I always like was thinking like furthermore what they were trying to say, and I was trying to know how they feel or what they
Mm-hmm.
meant. And when I was a teenager, I realized that that wasn't a normal thing to ask to yourself. Like most of the kids just accept whatever you tell them, and I was a very inquisitive kind of kid
Okay.
that I was always thinking about definitions and meanings and that kind of thing. So when I first read about psychology as a career, that's when I knew that that was the thing that I was doing all along, like just reading people and trying to think about what they think, you know.
So mostly
But
on human behavior.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Like in everything, in movies, in my parents, in my teachers, like every time that an adult just trying to say something to me, I was thinking back like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
questions like, yeah, but why are you like putting your eyebrow like this? Or why are you so angry if you don't have
Uh-huh.
to? And are you angry with me?
Uh,
Or is it something else, right? And I didn't realize that I was actually making psychological questions until way later, like 8 or 10 years later. But when I look back, I realized that I've been doing it pretty much all my life. So
mm-hmm.
that's why I decided to study psychology,
Uh-huh.
and I wanted to use it to help people. I just like to make people happy, so it could be either with a joke or with a psychological intervention.
So where did you study the psychology side?
Here in, well, I was born in another city called Durango,
Hmm?
and I'm from Mexico. I don't know if people know, but I'm from Mexico. So
Mm-hmm.
I was born in another state. Then my parents moved here to Guadalajara, and I studied here in a university called Univa.
Is Guadalajara in a different country or in Mexico?
No, it's within Mexico. It's just another
Ah,
state
another state.
within the state of Jalisco.
I'm
Just
not
that the
I'm not
name.
familiar with Mexico. Sorry about that.
No, don't worry. I know that the names here are actually pretty convoluted, so I don't expect people to memorize all the places where I live.
Hmm. So during college, you study about human behaviors of people collecting things like artifacts, items, from centuries ago? And did
Well,
you study about the behavior of collecting?
yes, but it wasn't like aimed to the modern kind of collector or just the collector that we know it. There is a psychological um, uh, illness called like hoarding, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So it's when people just accumulate a lot of stuff. So that very same mechanism is what you use to collect socially accepted stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when it becomes a problem, it says that you have a hoarder disorder or just a cumulative disorder, right? So in psychological terms, and please excuse me because please remember that Spanish is my first language, so
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the translation for all the clinical terms. So sorry
You
if
just
I'm a
say
bit
it in
clunky,
Spanish, like the
but
terms. We can someone can put in the
I,
links, the
I
links down
I'm
below.
trying my best. I try my best though, but if I
Yeah,
have to, I will say in Spanish. But the difference between a disorder and just your personality,
yeah.
it's about how functional it is. Okay, so we are all by nature neurotic. Okay, so a neurosis or being neurotic, it sounds like clinically bad, but it's not that bad. It's just the
Mm-hmm.
way you are. So you know that there's a lot of people that is very organized, and there are people that is very disorganized, and very people that is very happy, very sad. They are like very angry all the time, or just the opposite. And all those personality traits, they have to do with their neurotypical kind of behavior. So that is defined by the way you grew and your personal history.
Mm-hmm.
And if that personality trait becomes dysfunctional, that you just can't do something in your work, in your studies, your personal life, friendship, and what was the other one? In a couple relationship. If it affects any of those places, that means that perhaps it's not just a personality trait. Perhaps it's just it's a disorder. So depending on how functional it is, it could be considered a negative disorder. But to be honest, most of us, all the people, we are functional neurotypical people. Okay, so perhaps you can be very organized, but if it doesn't affect any other aspect of your life, then it's okay. You're just an organized person. So, and when it comes to collecting, it goes into that very train of thought. Like people who collect stuff, they have a personality trait that it's about collecting, right? So because I asked myself this, because one of the first things that I ask when I meet somebody new is, hey, do you have any collection? I don't ask him if they are collecting TCGs or if they are collecting anything else. I ask them if they have any kind of collection, because you will be surprised, but there is people that doesn't. There is people that just don't collect anything because they don't want. Like, you see people like Marie Kondo, right? Like that she lives in a minimalist space and they have only one chair and one bowl and their computer,
I've
and
seen
that's it.
that in a show, Minimalist.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is it?
one shoes, one shirt.
Exactly. Which
Yeah.
is the opposite
Wow.
of the hoarding, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is the opposite of
So
the cumulative
you're
disorder.
saying that hoarding and collecting are cousins.
Yeah,
Like, they're
they are
related.
connected, but it depends on how functional it is.
So
But
does that mean that hoarding was done in many centuries ago? Like the first human beings
yeah,
also did hoarding as well?
yeah, we are naturally made for collecting. Okay, we are collectors by nature, and you collect stuff for three different reasons. You have the natural reason for collecting, you have the psychological reason for collecting, and you have the functional reason for collecting. Okay, so the psychological, the natural reason for collecting is it goes in function for the greater order of things in nature. We survive by eating. So if we have more food, then that means that we're going to survive longer. So that means that if we can collect food and not risk hunting something, or that's why we start planting our own food. So that is a natural reason for collecting, right? So we are wired to if we find a good resource that we can collect and we can like just store somewhere else, we are naturally wired to try to collect as much of that thing. Okay, like squirrels and nuts. So we just
Oh
find a
yeah.
nut and we bury it and we collect a lot of that stuff. So that would be like the natural way of seeing collections. um, and we also collect people, right? We collect friends, we collect um even our family is a collection, because you have more kids and you have more
Yeah.
family and you start collecting a family, right? Either if you
Uh-huh.
like it or not, right? You start collecting people around you.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be like a natural way of seeing it. The psychological part of collecting is a little bit different, because the psychological means not the outside world, but it means the inside world. Okay, so you have internal reasons to collect things, right? And that internal reason to collect stuff, it goes in function of your personal life and what you like and what you don't. And
Mm-hmm.
for example, there are a bunch of reasons for that, which is they're gonna be the ones that you are gonna be more related to, because you can collect something because you are a fan of it, right? That you really like an IP, not
Yeah.
necessarily a trading card game, but Pokemon, for example, it was a game, a Game Boy game, and then it
Mm-hmm.
was a manga, and then it was an animated series, and from there, it was also a TCG, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you liked all of those things, then you just want to have more of that thing that you like it so
Yeah.
much, right? Because um, um, the nostalgia factor in all of those things is a very powerful engine that moves you to collect, and that's why they know that the more merchandising they release, the
Mm-hmm.
more are you gonna try to collect, because you relate some stimuli to pleasure, for example, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when I see anything related to Pokemon, I just remember myself, my 10-year-old self, playing in my Game Boy, being super happy, being the happiest that I've been in my life, because I
Yeah.
didn't have any problems. I didn't have money issues. I didn't have to pay taxes or have a job or anything, right? I was just there in an afternoon playing my video games.
They,
So
s-
that
they
feeling,
Yeah, they said that, sorry to interrupt you. They
don't
said
worry.
that nostalgia will occur when you have something bad happens to you during that time, and you just make it a positive. That's why playing these kinds of things will make you happy. But on the other side, during that period, you had a very bad experience. I'm not sure if it's correct because I've heard someone in YouTube that saying nostalgia is like this one. It occurs when there's something
Uh,
happens. I don't know if it's correct. Yeah.
the word nostalgia, very specifically, it comes from the Latin language, and
Mm-hmm.
it means missing home. That's what it means.
So you're
So
hurt. You're hurt.
I,
So you
you're
miss your
you
home.
you're missing the part of missing. It
Uh-huh.
means that you are somewhat hurt, because your desire
Empty.
is to go back. Yeah, you have this feeling of missing something, but you want to go back home. That's what it means. Okay,
Oh,
so
okay.
you have a place where you felt good, and
Mm-hmm.
when you don't, you just want to be there, and
Yeah.
that is the nostalgia factor, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that bad thing that is happening to you could happen later, way later, but you want to
Mm-hmm.
go back to that very moment, because it was good, it was pleasurable.
Correct.
And the nostalgia factor is what it sells a lot of merchandiser, because when you're a kid, you decided the thing that you are going to be buying when you're 30. So it's a very interesting mechanism, because all those things just drag during your adulthood.
Yeah, so you buy things to make you happy because you were happy during that time when you have those things. And
Exactly.
since you have now a money to invest or to buy those things, then you'll buy more,
Exactly.
right?
Now,
Oh,
relating that specifically to trading card games, that's what happens. Perhaps you started playing when you were really young.
yeah.
And for example, in myself, I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh with my brother,
Mm-hmm.
and we spent a lot of good time playing together. And then my dad joined in, because he bought us our first Yu-Gi-Oh starter decks, and we stopped playing with him because we were so busy playing Yu-Gi-Oh. So he came one day and he said like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And we were like, "Yeah, well, we're playing." And he
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Is that like poker?" And we said, "No, it's way more complicated." He just sat there, he learned the rules, and he started
Yeah.
playing with us. And then between the three of us, we made a huge collection of Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I have tons of foil rare cards because my dad just play with us. So nowadays, whenever I see Yu-Gi-Oh, or whenever I see any TCG, my mind immediately just drags me to those times where I play with my brother, when I play with my dad,
Yeah.
and that serotonin um,
Oh.
in my brain,
Mm-hmm.
or the happy chemicals, as they call them, they just kick in and they make me feel good and they make me feel nostalgic. So if you ask me for a reason for me to collect cards, I bet that there is a very big percentage of my brain that is connected to that very aspect. It could be different for you. It could be different for everyone, but the nostalgia factor is actually very important in this. So the other thing is that when we, um, I mean, the the serotonin that I mentioned is a chemical in your brain that makes pleasurable things pleasurable, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not that when you do something like when you go to the movies or have a date or I don't know, talk to the person that you like.
Yep.
There is a chemical inside the brain that is rewarding you for doing things, just any kind of things.
So is this
So
different from dopamine?
it's also they are very related. I mean, in the brain, you have like 2 or 3 main chemicals that do pretty much
Uh-huh.
similar work. But for example, dopamine, it goes more related to physical stimuli.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, it's pretty much the same. We are junkies of our own brain. Okay, that's my message here. We create our own chemicals for being
Mm-hmm.
happy, right?
Uh-huh.
So we are constantly trying to like uh, uh, like to make our brains to make more of that. You see,
Yeah.
so we're constantly looking for ways to trigger those kind of chemicals. So whenever you find something that triggers it, you tend to repeat it because it's as simple as a dog training where when someone just gives a reward to a dog when it
Yeah.
does something. I'm really sorry to say this to everyone, but we work pretty much the same. Is
Mm.
uh, conditioning does the work. So we are very conditioned to stuff. We are conditioned to food. We are conditioned to people. We are conditioned to look at TV series, and we are conditioned specifically in the TCG area
Mm-hmm.
to buy stuff because buying new things, it releases dopamine or serotonin. Opening a pack, and you will back me in this. Opening a new pack, smelling, right? Just
Yeah.
the
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 sound
cardboard,
of the
yeah,
crackling
the sound.
wrappers, you know?
It
Yeah.
means that you will have the opportunity to pull a rare card, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and you pull the rare card. uh, just before that, not even when you pull it, before that,
Uh-huh.
just before you take that last card, when you know the order where the rare cards
Yep.
are stored, right? So you pull the just the one before, and your stomach starts
Yeah.
uh like
Rumbling.
yeah, rumbling, right?
Uh-huh.
And then you pull it and you see that little metallic frame, and you know in that very specific moment that you got something big. It
And
doesn't matter what it
there's
is.
a when you swipe it to the left, there's a shadowless border.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
And it's a
So
color. What's the color of Charizard? I forgot. Orange?
I think it's orange. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's that one, oh man. Okay.
Exactly. So you don't even know yet if you got something really good, but just that feeling, that very feeling, it's enough for you
Mm,
to try to repeat that as many times as you can,
yeah,
right? And that is
correct.
very psychological. It doesn't have to do with your survival. It doesn't have to do with how much the card worth or anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a feeling of discovery that makes you feel good. So whenever you also the brain, is wired to think in the future of possible outputs, right? So when you see these very pleasant videos when they could kinetic sand or they squeeze things, and I don't know if you have ever wondered why you feel pleasure out of that if it's just a video, but it is pleasant because your mind is trying to guess what is going to happen, and whenever you actually guess what is going to happen, it releases serotonin and dopamine and this chemical. So it actually conditions itself to um, to try to guess, right, what is going on, because guessing is good because it allows you to react, right? That's a natural way of thinking. So in the TCG, when you open a card and you do all this ritual, you're trying to guess what is going to happen. You are trying to guess the output that you're going to get a rare card, right? Or you're going to get the card that you're looking for. And whenever that happens, the serotonin and dopamine influx is huge. Like you are like, oh my god, like that video when he pulls the Black Lotus and he starts like
shaking.
You can see his hand like and his voice just cracks.
Correct.
And you feel that, right? And so that's because the serotonin and dopamine influx is so big that that his whole body is just it just starts like misfunction, right?
Okay.
So in a sense, we are addicts to that feeling. Okay, there are people that gets that very same feeling from jumping out of a plane in a parachute. There are some people that get that same feeling from doing motocross or I don't know,
mountain
winning.
Climbing. You know, the wall. Climbing on mountains, very difficult.
Right? Exactly. Or or people in Wall Street just trying to guess how much a company is going to be worth in the next hours, and they hit it and they earn a lot of money. That feeling is very addictive. We are very addicted.
Yeah, but why me? I like just trading cards, and then why I don't like those how's that parachute
well
paragliding, something like that, or climbing mountains.
Probably if you don't like extreme sports, is because you haven't tried them enough, because you get addicted to the chemicals, not precisely to the experience. But there are some experience that are going to be more approachable to you because of your own individual history. What I said about my brother and my dad and all that, it works only for me. It doesn't work for everyone else. So we collectors, we have a specific story behind our lives that push us to collect stuff, and we converge in this collectible world because sooner or later you find something to collect. There is I mean, not everything is collectible, right? You can collect Harry Potter books, but you will only have 7, right? And that's it. That's the collection. And then you will try to get editions, right? So you buy the same 7 books, but you're gonna start
toys
collecting it. And when you run out of editions, you get the toys and the movies and the hat and the merchandising, and so it starts like branching from from somewhere. And when a company makes a lot of merchandising of one single thing, your collectible brain starts, it just kicks in. They know exactly what they're doing when they are releasing merchandising. It's no accident that they just keep going on and on and on, because they know that we are naturally collectors. So you can find things that you may want to collect, but there is not much to collect. So that will end up there, or you will find ways to collect it in a very more weird ways. There are pinball machines that are collectible. There are people who collects everything that Coca-Cola,
Yeah.
they released it, they collected. It is very funny, but that depends on you. The reason that the TCG industry exists is because it actually attacks from for various angles. You can collect because it's fun. You can collect because you like the game,
Mm-hmm.
because it's fun to play it,
Yep.
right? I mean, at the beginning, I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh because it was fun to play, not because I wanted to collect it.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, I started collecting it for nostalgia, but at the beginning, I started collecting it because it was fun, because I wanted to be the best, right? So I needed more cards for that. And I wanted to beat my brother because his deck was better than mine. So I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to compete against him. And then I started entering to tournaments because I wanted to be better than anyone else. So just the mechanics and the play and the way it was played is just one aspect. So you can collect for that. You can collect for the art because you like art.
Yeah.
So if the cards are pretty enough, then that's gonna kick a part of you that wants to collect them all. And guess what? There are 200 or 500 or 1,000, and that gives you like some sort of meaning or the internal meaning because you are trying to define yourself through your collections, right?
Yeah.
This whole world, this whole life is a constant fight for ourselves to define why we are here. We are trying, we are like, we are trying all the time to justify to find a meaning to our own lives. So if you have a goal, it's easier, right?
Yeah.
Every coach in the internet is going to tell you to have a goal, right?
Yes.
That's what you need. So guess what? 500 cards sounds like a really good goal, right? So
Yeah.
you have 499 and you're missing one, and that is your goal, you
Correct.
see? And then you got them all. You got the 500 and you're like, "Oh man. Well, that's it. I'm going to watch them until I get old, or I can move to the next collection and set a new
Oh.
goal." So that is the psychological part of of the TCG. So you have a lot of reasons to collect TCGs: the art, the gameplay, the collectible, the nostalgia. That's why Yu-Gi-Oh has an animated series, because it was a manga and it was
Yeah.
a game, and now it's a series. Then we're toys, then we're games, then we're movies,
It's
and
endless
they started building
addition
up because they
add-ons.
knew they have a product that it was collectible. Pokemon, it's a collectible game. It's a collectible brand. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter what they release, it just becomes collectible, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I observed that.
And most of the people who collects Pokemon don't play Pokemon, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Pokemon TCG, they don't play. Most of them don't play Pokemon TCG.
And so
Most of them.
this will lead to compulsive purchases, right?
Yeah. The other, that was the psychological aspect: natural,
Oh, yeah,
psychological, and
psychological, yeah,
functional. The third
functional.
one is the functional. The functional reason for collecting something is because it works somehow in your life.
Mm,
And this is where like it accomplishes some sort of function in your life, which you will recognize is because you can sell them. They have a value.
mm-hmm, yeah.
So whenever you get a rare card, you think that you have just pulled money out of the booster pack, right? So people who doesn't care about nostalgia, people who doesn't care about gameplay or collection, they are looking for money. It's a functional way of seeing the TCGs, right?
Mm-hmm,
And there are many. Because, for example, you have a YouTube channel out of the collectible trading card games, right? So that's functional for you. It's making you an audience. It's making you a name. It's making you, I don't know, in the social sphere. It has a function, right?
mm-hmm, yeah.
So whenever something has a function, it has a dysfunction. All right.
Yeah.
So if that dysfunction is that you're spending more money on it than you earn, then you have a problem, right?
Yeah, correct.
If you find yourself that psychologically you cannot stop yourself from buying something really expensive,
Mm-hmm.
then you have a compulsive disorder. You see, that is the other side of the coin of the functional way of seeing it. So you have the function of money, but the dysfunctional buying disorder, right?
Yeah.
Or because the term compulsive, it goes to the psychological meaning,
Mm-hmm.
but it goes into the function of the socially accepted behaviors. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so if you have a compulsive behavior, like, I don't know, scratching your head, you are not hurting anyone, right? You're
Yeah,
just like scratching your head,
correct.
and that's it. The worst that can happen is that you get bald in the
Yeah.
place that you're scratching, but it's not precisely dysfunctional in a social level. But if your dysfunction goes, or your compulsive behavior goes into stealing things from
Yeah.
stores,
And also it will
or
affect the budget of your family, you know?
exactly, affecting your own budget, affecting your company budget, your family in some sort of way, that is when compulsive behavior becomes a problem, and it has to be uh,
Addressed.
assessed, yeah, addressed by a professional.
Okay.
Okay, now the marketing, the companies, they know how to trigger that compulsiveness.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one of the big issues about pretty much the whole industry, not trading cards, like in general.
Yeah.
Companies are trying constantly to trigger those compulsive behaviors, and they're trying constantly to trigger those natural collectible wires that you have in your head.
Mm-hmm.
So it is really important for us to understand that. I think that I was thinking about not only to talk about why we collect things, but
Mm-hmm.
actually give a message of how important it is to know why we collect things. Because if we know this, we can like fight back a little bit with companies, like when they try to, and you have seen it lately with Magic the Gathering, that they're just releasing outrageous kind of collections, and
Yes.
prices are going up, and
Correct.
everyone is just mad at them right now because it feels like a money grab, right? They're just
Mm-hmm.
trying to cash as much as possible, and they're doing bad stuff, so bad that you notice, but most of the time you don't. Okay, so we have to be very open eyes on why we collect stuff. I collect stuff myself. I know all these things, and I'm still a TCG collector, and I am still a book collector.
Mm-hmm.
I have tons of art books. I have like 200 art books, and they're way more expensive than cards. But I know that, for example, I integrated my art books into my life and my work flow because I learn from them. I have a TikTok channel talking from them, and
Mm-hmm.
I try to gain revenue for my expenses. So I turn a compulsive psychological collector behavior
Yes.
into something more functional. And you may say so yourself, right? Because you have a channel about
Yes.
collectible cards, because you love collectible cards, and you try to turn that that behavior into something beneficial for you, right?
Yeah, and also to sustain your
Exactly.
stuff, the,
Perhaps you don't. Oh,
this
sorry.
behavior. Yeah, yeah. You also to sustain your hobby. So because it's
Hmm.
you feel the dopamine in it, and if you can control it, at least you will not be dysfunctional, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You perhaps don't have enough money to buy more cards, but you can
Yes.
sell older cards to buy new cards if what you want is to fill that, and you
Yep.
can make it pay for itself. So there are many ways to do it, but in order to do it, you have to understand yourself. You have to understand that it is a hobby, that the value we give to the cards is a value that we give it to the cards. It's just cardboard, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could say it's just cardboard, but it's not just cardboard for us. It means a lot of things. It
Yes.
means perhaps your whole memory or your personality is made around them. So it's not just cardboard, but you have to understand that for other people will be just cardboard. So
Mm-hmm.
um, it's a responsibility to know very well where our boundaries are into collecting stuff and how we can turn that possibly into something beneficial for us. That's why we have communities. That's why we have groups of we have collect accounts. We have um, a lot of places where all the people that collect just gather and try to make something functional out of this kind of
Yeah. The
disorder,
events.
you see.
Mm-hmm. So
So
are there
uh,
any mind or physical exercise to control this?
that would be um,
Like yoga?
the-
I don't know.
I mean, I cannot say like in a specific exercise
Mm-hmm.
because that will depend on the individual. And if I give you an exercise that doesn't work for you, you're gonna come to me and you're gonna say, "Hey, you don't know a thing." But
Yeah.
that's because you have. If you think that this is affecting you into a personal level or an economic level or in a very important level, you have to go to a professional. At least just to assess it, just to try to figure if you have a problem or not, right? Because people when they enter to my house and they see my books, they say like, "Oh my god, like what is this? Like why you have so many books? Why you want so many books?" And I spend like 20 to 30 minutes explaining how important they
Yeah.
are. But you can't do that always, right? So
Yeah.
you have to hear those kind of comments and ask yourself just for a teeny moment if they could be right, right? Like is this normal? Am I spending responsibly
Mm-hmm.
my money in this? It is a hobby or is an obsession, right?
Oh,
And if you and if the answer is not clear enough, then go to a professional and just try to evaluate it
mm-hmm.
and see if you can do something. There are responsible ways to have collections, and there are responsible ways to spend your money and still be very functional and still enjoy your collections. But when you don't have control of it, then you have to stop for a second and try to think like what you're doing and assess it. So
Mm-hmm.
an exercise, no, is more like a
Understand the nature of this, what you're doing, right? Because
yeah, it's just
you will know that you're
an
in there.
it's just a piece of advice. Just if you have a doubt on this regard, please go to a professional
Yeah.
near to you
Mm-hmm.
and talk to him or her, and they will probably ask you a bunch of questions, and then you will figure yourself if it
Yeah.
is or not a problem.
So they have to dig in your history, before, and then
Exactly.
they will know what's happening with your
Yes.
it's either compulsive or maybe just buying things that, hoarding, something like that, you know.
Exactly.
And have you encountered patients that has with this kind of behavior, compulsive buying behavior, and also what are the like have you seen the worst like full of a house full of you say books, right? It's like a house
Yes.
is like a library already because of that, you know. And I've seen people also in TikTok that he went to someone went to his basement and there's a lot of things like you can't walk because
Yeah.
of those things, you know. So have you
Yes.
encountered this kinds of behaviors?
Yes. I haven't had a patient who has a TCG hoarder disorder,
Mhm.
but they have other kind of hoarding disorders. Like, for example, you collect things that are not physical. Also, like you collect opinions, you collect congratulations, you collect, and you become addicted to certain words or to certain experiences with people. So I've had, for example, patients that are addicted to have new relationships, and they collect people, they collect couples. So
Mm-hmm.
there was one patient that has this issue, and he didn't like relationships. He just liked to have new ones. So he just went on and just finished one and entered into a new one because he really liked that very first stage of a relation when you are in the honeymoon and blah, blah, blah. So
Mm-hmm.
that was so pleasant that he just became like addicted to that feeling, but he didn't want it to have a serious relationship or anything. But that
Mm-hmm.
made a lot of bad behaviors where he lied a lot. He made a whole script just that knew that worked with with people, with girls in this, in his case.
Is that
And
a relationship at the same time or one after another?
some of them were at the same time, like not all of them, but he had moments where he had two or three.
Uh-huh. I think there's an
So
actor having that kind of behavior. It's Leonardo
uh-huh, uh-huh.
DiCaprio. He had what I've read in the in the Facebook that um he dated women just below 25 years old, and then once
Yes.
they reach 25, the girl reached 25 and he is done already.
Well, I'm not sure if he sees it that way, because big part of having a collection, for example, is that you know exactly what kind of item you're collecting.
Uh,
So I don't know if he has a checklist and says like, oh yeah, it's 26. Ooh, no, this too old, and
this one is
let's
not
just
rare
ditch it.
anymore, so
Yeah, let's just discard it. Perhaps
okay.
his problem is more about a maturity thing,
Mm,
right? Or being
yeah.
addicted to be admired for someone younger than him, or I don't
Oh
know.
yeah.
I don't know.
Correct.
I could have a
Correct.
lot of
Yeah.
things, but that is something that is important, because we have to be very specific into noticing what kind of patterns are we following.
Yeah.
And we might call it, because with this patient I call it a collection of relationships, right? But it's not precisely a collection. Is he has his own set of problems internally, and it's easier to call it a collection. But
Yeah.
um, when we talk about this kind of stuff, we have to really think, are we collecting cards, or are we collecting something else? Are we collecting toys, or are we collecting something else? Right? Like, what is the thing behind it? And if you find that meaning you don't like it, perhaps it's time to stop just for a second
Mm-hmm.
and think if you want to continue, right? Um, and see if you have control of that
Mm-hmm.
thing, of
Yeah.
your collection, or it's backwards, or your collection has a control over you. So yes, I have many patients that have these kind of issues, and one that is not my patient, but it is my neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
That house, that house is the most cluttered thing I've ever been.
Oh yeah.
Is a woman,
Mm-hmm.
is a older woman, and he had a mouse in
Nice.
her house, and she asked me to look for it, and I say like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, I've caught a lot in my parents'
Okay.
house. So I went, and it was impossible. It was
Oh.
impossible, and it was very logical that the mouse was there, because there was a lot of space to hide, and there
Hmm.
was no order, and there
And
were
what kind
mountains
of
of
things?
things.
What kinds of items? the chess.
Everything. She had a problem where she thought that everything was useful at some point, so she didn't throw anything. Actually, she was a very clean person. One would think that she would be like dirty, but
Yeah.
no, everything was super clean and everything was in place, just quote unquote. But there were mountains of things. You couldn't see the sofa, you couldn't see the table, you couldn't. She ate in a very minimal space in the table where she
Oh.
sat, and you couldn't eat with her. She will have to move stuff, and she had like mountains of cardboard, mountains
Mm.
of clothing, mountains of plastic, mountains of stuff that she thought it was going to be useful at some point.
Oh man,
So
I feel guilty. I also think about that. Like I like to recycle boxes. I will say, oh, this box is maybe I will use this someday. So I have to put it there until I have a lot of boxes here.
well, I can assure you, I don't think that that would be as bad as this woman's house, because literally you cannot live there. I mean, that is the dysfunctional part that I'm talking about. Like, you
Yeah,
cannot
you
sit,
cannot
you
move.
cannot walk, you
You
can't do any of
you
those.
become uncomfortable already that you
Yeah,
don't
exactly.
know, right?
Exactly. And she doesn't invite anyone to her house, obviously,
Oh, of
because
course, yeah.
she knows that people are just gonna make questions and they're gonna try to see it and they will not be able to see it. So
Mm-hmm.
that is the closest I've been to a hoarder disorder, like uh, uh, clinically accurate hoarder disorder. That is, I mean, I don't know if you have seen the Studio Ghibli's movie and how everything looks very cluttered. It's like 10
Mm-hmm.
times or 100 times that, like impossible. Not even the light goes through the windows. Really, really weird. So, so yeah, I've seen it myself. So obviously, a collector separates itself from a hoarder because you have a sense of a goal collecting stuff,
Yeah. You
right?
have a
It's not
limit.
something
You
that
have a ceiling.
exactly you have a goal, you have a certain type of things that you collect, not everything. Um, but you do have to put a limit into it. Like, for example, my dad is the person with more pair of shoes that I've ever encountered. He
Mm-hmm.
has about 700 or 800 pairs of shoes. And obviously, when you enter to his collection room, because he has a
Mm-hmm.
room only for that, obviously,
Wow.
all the walls are filled with
Shoes.
rows and rows and rows of shoes. And you could say he has a problem, right? But
Mm-hmm.
economically, it doesn't affect any other part of
Yeah.
his life. He has a room just for that. The rest of the house is normal, right? So he has a collection. He has a very minded thing that he wants to collect, and that's what he does. So that is mostly the difference between a collector and a hoarder, and functionality. Functionality.
Yep.
I mean, if it affects part of your life, if you can't live without buying a new booster pack, perhaps that means that you might have to stop for a little bit and and assess this kind of behavior.
Yeah.
But the best you control it, the best is gonna be for you, because you're gonna make smarter purchases. You're gonna make smarter choices in this regard and live a happy collector life.
Yeah,
You see?
correct. Just what I did is I love collecting. At first, I collected Magic the Gathering. I bought some products of Magic the Gathering, and because I really love it, ever since I was young. But now I bought few, and then I said,
Uh-huh.
"Oh, I want more." So what I did is to satisfy my craving of having TCGs or cards. So I bought a lot of bulk, you know. So I
Uh-huh.
sorted them, sorted everything, and I love flicking it. I love sorting it to green or different kinds of colors, something like that. Until I realized that, oh, I think I've known almost all the expansion sets, then I'm already completely satisfied with it. So I slow down my buying, you know. So that's why
Exactly.
but now after that, not just Magic, I now started to go to Flesh and Blood. And then I go to another TCGs until with a lot of things here. And I started telling myself, oh, I love TCG, but I'm already almost, I'm always already satisfied with Magic. And then I want to do more TCGs,
Mhm.
like knowing the TCGs, other TCGs. And that's why I'm talking to creators and playing other games. And basically, it's like giving me satisfaction of having different kinds of TCGs. That's how I did with like controlling, and then I
Mhm.
created my YouTube channel to sustain it, you know.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
so that's I think the main thing here is that you can continue buying things, but at least you don't go to a dysfunctional state, right? That
Yes.
you no longer can maintain it and you're getting budget from away from your family.
Mhm.
Supposedly for your kids' education, you get it and then buy stuff like booster boxes, knowing that it will be expensive soon. So
Exactly.
yeah, that's why what I also what I how to control it by myself. It depends on the person, but for me is I will I will have a budget, a percentage of my income every month set is aside
Mhm.
for my mental health investment, something like
That
to
that is a
satisfy.
very smart way to do it. I do the same. For my books, I
Yeah,
have a monthly budget and I cannot go further from that. And
yep.
sometimes I made a mistake because I buy a book, right? So I put it in my shelf and I say like, oh yeah, it looks amazing. And
Uh-huh.
then I realized it's a three-part book, right?
Oh,
So I'm
okay.
like, okay, I had to get the other two because now my
Hmm.
collection is incomplete. And then I realized that the second or the third book is super rare to find and it's
Oh
super
man.
expensive. And I'm
Okay.
like, oh, what I have done. Like now my collection is gonna be incomplete until I get it, right? So
Yeah.
I'm in the book hunting all the time. And
Hmm.
the same happened with the TCE. You just start a new collection without even realizing, but then you say like, oh, okay, I have the first set. Perhaps I should buy the second, right? Because I already have the first. So you kickstart like a domino effect
Correct.
where
And you
you
will
start like
and the time you will know there's a lot of it's mountains of books.
exactly.
Like me, I said, okay, I will collect one of each artwork. Okay, so I collect it. And then I said,
Uh-huh.
oh, maybe I can make a playset. Four. Usually four, right? Playset of this. And then I said, oh, I want to make two sets. So now I have I collected four, and then I said, okay, I make three sets now. That's the problem,
Exactly.
So the main thing is that you have to have a budget, make more than you spend, right? When you're addicted, that's the problem, So, but some
Mhm.
people can control it, some people don't. So that's why I think the main thing here is that they have to think that if some people were already affected by what I'm doing, so that's becoming a problem already, you know,
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah.
It can affect others or it can affect yourself. And you have
Oh yeah, yeah.
to be very mindful of
Your
that.
behavior
I
on other things, like your social behavior, you don't go out anymore because of that. The one that you're with your neighbors doesn't invite other people. So what do you think? What's your what do you want to say to the viewers who are having this kinds of behavior?
well, I think that all that we have said is we just have to aim it to be a responsible collector. There is nothing wrong in being a collector. Yeah, as I said, there is a natural reason for being a collector. So we are wired that way. So if people and companies know it and they try to push you to collect stuff, I think that the best tool you have is to understand yourself. Why are you collecting? What are you collecting really? Right?
Mm-hmm.
It is nostalgia. It is the game. It is the fear of missing out. Right? Why? Why are you collecting your stuff? And when you find that answer, if you like that answer, then just go on and try to do it as responsibly as you can. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't like that answer, like, oh, I am collecting because I feel empty, for example,
Mm-hmm.
that might be a reason to go to a professional and try to fix that, right? It's not, a collection doesn't have to be a an amount of things that fills the emptiness inside us or just complete us because we're incomplete. We can be wholesome people and we can be complete people and be collectors because we like it. So my invitation here will be for people to just stop for a second, close their eyes, and think, why do I like to collect this thing, right? If it is TCGs, why do I like to collect TCGs? And see if they like that answer. And if they don't find the answer, then there is nothing wrong going to a psychologist and just ask him, like, hey, do you know what? I spend a lot of money on these things. And I heard from a YouTube video that perhaps it will be positive if I analyze this to see if it's going to affect me in the future. What do you think? And you tell him, perhaps you're going to find an answer that perhaps you like it most that you think, or perhaps you're going to find that you have a problem that you can manage now instead of not being able to manage later, you see. So that is my invitation, that with all that we have said, we just have to stop and ask ourselves, why do we like to collect things, and do it responsibly.
That is awesome, Kundu. Thank you for that. And this is really a good topic, and I can go more hours on this talking
I
about
could,
it. Yeah.
yeah.
By the way, yeah, before we end this discussion, what are your
Mhm.
projects right now aside from psychological therapy work?
Well, right now I'm still mostly an artist
Mm-hmm.
for still TCGs. Actually, right
Mm-hmm.
now I've been um, I just gained the position of creative director in Lore TCG, like officially, and that happened like yesterday actually. So this is very new. This is good news because I'm gonna have a little bit more of creative saying
Mm-hmm.
into the game,
Congratulations.
and I'm being involved. So I'm gonna be working a lot of that. I'm making a child's book based on Lovecraft lore as well.
Mm-hmm.
um, three actually of them. I'm very excited because I that's something I always wanted to do, and I couldn't get an answer from my client. So I asked him if I could talk about his project, but he didn't answer in time. So
Okay.
I can only say that I'm in a new TCG project that
Wow.
hasn't
All
been
right.
that is not out yet. Um, but I think that people is gonna love it. It sounds like fun and it's gonna be epic. So whenever I get an answer, I perhaps could have another time to tell uh, what it is.
Yep.
But I think that's gonna be. I open a new TikTok account and I'm about to open a YouTube channel for artists to teach artists art tips and motivation and these
Nice.
kind of talks, but dedicated to art.
Do you do tutorials on arts, like
That's
one-on-one or a
precisely.
group?
Yeah, actually,
Mm-hmm.
I also a teacher. I'm giving classes, art classes,
Oh,
for digital media, and but it's everything in Mexico here in Spanish.
yeah.
So, but my YouTube channel is gonna be about art tips that are gonna be related to
So
digital art.
from none non-artist, like the first
Yeah,
time to draw to
yeah. That
expert
actually
level?
my focus is to teach non-artists to be artists because I started
Nice.
at 25 or 26 year old, so I know that it is possible to learn, and I think I have the knowledge to teach adults how to get into art. So I don't know.
Nice.
This is experiment that I wanna test.
Mm-hmm.
Time will
Yes,
tell.
I might enroll in your university, Kunduz University or Academy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that sounds good.
yeah. All right. So I will ask you some of the links that you gotta put it in the description down
All
below.
right.
And
Okay.
thanks everyone for watching. Comment down for questions and feedback. And see you in the next video. Thank you very much. This is Ben Trading Cards.
Bye
Bye.
bye. Thank you very much.